Jules Feiffer.
Well, thank you. I haven't seen this movie. It came out in 1981. Probably since 1990, I haven't seen it. And it's a very different movie than the one I remember. It's certainly different from the one I wrote because Altman did not pay a lot of attention to people who wrote words. But it has its charms. It's mostly lost them for me, but it has its charms. And what would any of you like to know?
You said that you got in 60% of your script in the film.
Maybe 25.
Bob Evans came to you. I mean, you were in the film before Altman, right? You were attached to the film before Altman. Bob Evans came to you.
Well, the way it all happened is that because of the success of Annie, the Broadway show, Robert Evans wanted to do a musical of Annie. But Annie was already under contract and already being made. And Evans had a contract he was a supervising producer, or whatever kind of producer, for Paramount. And he realized that Paramount owned the rights to the Popeye animated cartoons done by Max Fleischer. And so he could do Popeye. And he wanted to get a friend of mine, oh, yes. What happens with age is you forget the names of the closest friends of yours. Susan Lacey, what is your name? I just had the name. Richard, I forgot my old friend's name. Anyhow, the man I'm talking about, whose name I can't remember, he was going to be the supervising producer. He had worked on the movie that I had written called Carnal Knowledge that Mike Nichols had done. And Evans and my friend Dick, whatever his name is, Dick said to Evans, the only one who could write this script is me, Jules Feiffer, he said. So Evans called me up on the phone and he said, would you like to do this Popeye? And I said, depending on which Popeye do you want? Because the one Popeye, the original comic strip in the newspaper, I adored and I thought was a piece of absolutely brilliant work. And I said I would want to adapt that. But the animated cartoons I thought sucked. And he said, I'll do whatever, But he, being a practice producer, knew how to get me. He said, I'll do whatever Popeye you want to do. So there it went. And Evans and I got along wonderfully. And that's about it. It's Altman and I were bar friends. They're in a cafe that used to exist on the East 80s called Elaine's, and I was under the impression that we were friends until we made the movie, and then it was all over.
But you went on the set to Malta, right? You went on the set to Malta. Yes.
Oh yes. The reason now. Malta was a very unlikely. Malta is a rock. There is no indigenous wood on Malta. That whole town, you saw, the wonderful town designed by the West German designer Wolf Kroger, had to be imported from Canada. Every piece of wood in that film was imported because there was no wood on Malta. But Altman wanted to be on Malta because it was as far away from the producers at Paramount as he could get. And if it were possible for Altman to shoot the movie on the moon, he would have made an argument for that, just to get away from the Paramount. Because Altman hated supervision. He hated anybody telling him what to do, and the results are this, some extraordinary examples of setups and filmmaking and wild, unbelievable scenery and scene changes. But nothing very much makes any sense. If you see Altman's movies, none of his movies ever made much sense. And he didn't care. He just liked the effect. He was an impressionist, and he was a genius at that. The rest, he had very little interest in. But he got wonderful actors who worked with him over and over again, and he could create scenes that seemed very real. And one of the things that I felt when he was named to do Popeye was that he could make us believe in the character, which he certainly did, and believe in the wildness of it, which he certainly did. That part came across.
And Robin Williams.
What's that?
It's the first big role for Robin Williams. He was just a TV actor, right? He was
I can't hear you.
Robin Williams was just doing television.
The original Popeye that Evans wanted was Dustin Hoffman, and when I wrote the original script, or the first draft of a script, it was for Dustin, and Dustin saw it and he loved it, and on the way we were in Hollywood to meet he and I and Evans and I was I was in a hotel nearby Evans' house, and I was walking to Evans' house, and Dustin came by in the car, and he picked me up in the car, and because we had known each other from New York, and he started talking about this being Kafka, and this being this, and this being that, and how brilliant it was, and how wonderful it was. And then when he met with Evans, he tried to get me fired from the movie and get his own writer put on. and Evans did something that simply wasn't done. At that time, Dustin was a huge Hollywood star, and he was the money. But Evans said, you're going to be the star of the movie, and Jules is going to be the writer of the movie, and if you agree to that, we'll go ahead. And Dustin walked, and we had no movie. But here was the producer actually backing a screenwriter, which simply doesn't. It's unheard of. And about a year later, because we had no chance of making the movie because there was no Popeye. Evans called me on the phone and said, "Have you seen Mork and Mindy?" And as soon as he said this was a TV show, a popular TV show that then you remember, starring Robin Williams. As soon as he said it, I knew that he was talking about Robin, and I felt stupid because I'd seen Mork and Mindy and loved Robert Williams in it. It never occurred to me that he would be a perfect Popeye, which he would be, and he was. So we had our Popeye, and we went on from there. There were endless fights and controversies that there are on all Altman films. At one point, I walked out. I said I was quitting, and Altman said, although he fought her all the time, "You can't quit." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because you're the only one around here who tells me the truth." So it's but by the time the last scenes of the film were shot, right after Robin does his "I Am What I Am" solo, which was supposed to be something very different, I did quit. I went back to New York, so I had nothing to do with what is on the rest of that film.
What is it that you regret the most that it is not there from your script?
What's that?
What is it that it's not there from your script that you regret the most?
Oh, well, it's 100 years ago. I don't remember the ins and outs of what I did or didn't do. What you know, what I do notice with great fun is actors I've worked with before. Paul Dooley, who played Wimpy. I helped cast in the movie. He'd worked with Altman before, but Altman didn't want him because Dooley had wanted him for Altman in some other movie, and Dooley was under contract for something else, so he said no, and I fought for Dooley, and we got Dooley to play Wimpy. And the same thing with Shelley Duvall. Shelley Duvall was discovered by Altman, but she had made The Shining with the Kubrick film. And Altman wanted her for one of his films, so he wanted Goldie Hawn to play Olive Oyl. And we fought over that, and finally Shelley got the job she should have, and she was brilliant. She was wonderful on it. And so those were the things that I look back on most fondly. The members of the cast I knew from my previous plays working with them. I'd worked with Paul Dooley and a few others. But the Malta experience was really surreal, and the film comes off as surreal. Does anybody have any questions that you want to ask? Susan.
Let me get the mic so that we record the question.
Thank you. You describe it as surreal. Can you be a little more specific about what was so surreal about the situation? What was Altman doing that was creating this kind of chaos?
Well, you see the images on the screen, and I felt the movie, instead of being about the characters involved in the storyline, was simply an ongoing mob scene where there was chaos was everywhere, and the chaos never got clarified, and the chaos never got identified. And it was brilliant looking. I mean, the shooting of it, and some extraordinary actors. For some of you who know the work of Bill Irwin, he was an unknown clown when he was hired to do Popeye. And his work in this film is just wonderful. And he's gone on to be, of course, a very significant and important actor. But there is I get the feeling from looking at the film that more important than anything else was the chaos and the characters and the relationship between the characters and the warmth and attraction to the characters is amazingly shows up, because mostly he wasn't shooting for that and he didn't give a damn about that. So I think the film looks great. I think it's shot beautifully, and I'm glad that I have nothing further to do with it.
Another question?
Anybody else?
Yes.
Hello. Did you conceive of it as a musical or all the song and dance aspects?
I think that the musical idea was Evan's idea, but it was Altman who got Harry Nilsson to write the score. And I didn't know Harry or his work before, but we became good friends in Malta. Harry came to Malta and wrote a number of the songs, and we worked on them together. I would tell him what I thought the song should be. He would write the thing, and Altman would do everything he could to undermine it. that's. Working with Harry was a lot of fun, and he was a sweetheart to deal with. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Were you able to see the rehearsal process and how Robin Williams was able to kind of create that character, and maybe just talk a little more about Robin Williams on the set? And
Robin, who I knew only from Morgan Minnie, had never met before. I met either just before we went to Malta or on Malta. I'm not sure I met him before we went to Malta. He was just... it's hard. He was a sweetheart. I mean, I just hate what happened to him, but he was just the kindest, sweetest. I'll tell you a personal Robin story. After we shot the film, and Robin had gone on to star in all sorts of other things and became a big, big star. I did there was a publication called Civilization. They asked me to edit an issue of the magazine on cartoons, and I did. And then they said they needed some pizzazz for it. Could I think of anybody to interview for it? And I said, well, Robin did Popeye. Maybe I could get Robin. And he got very excited about that. And then I told my daughter Hallie, who was must have been about 8 or 9 at the time, that I was going to interview Robin Williams, and she said, "Can I be there for it? Can I be on? Can I?" She knew it would be from California. Could she listen in? And I said, "Of course you can." And then the studio decided that they wanted to do it from somewhere else. So it was a situation where my daughter Hallie couldn't be there. And I forgot all about my promise to her. And I did the interview with Robin. And Hallie came home from school and she said, "What do we do, Robin Williams?" And I thought, oh shit. And I told her, and she just burst into tears and went into her room and closed the door. And I was destroyed. I immediately called the West Coast and got Robin's people and told them and told them what had happened. And I said, "Could Robin call me back? Or is there anything we?" And about 10 minutes later, I got a call. I picked it up. It was Robin's voice. I said, "Hello." He said, "Can I speak to Hallie Feiffer, please?" And then I gave the phone to Hallie, and Robin was on the phone with Hallie for a half an hour. And that's what he was. Just a simple, decent, sweet, lovely man, and I value him highly. And of course, with all the talent in the world. Any other questions?
Any other question?
I can't imagine Dustin Hoffman in that role. I mean, he doesn't have the physicality to pull it off. I mean, Robin.
I can't hear you, Susan.
I said, I can't imagine Dustin Hoffman in that role. I don't think he has the physicality and the flexibility.
Well, Dustin would have been a very different Popeye, but Dustin was a wonderful actor. He could have done it. Other people could have done it, but Robin was perfect for it. Dustin would have had to, but I have no doubt that he could have done it. But what's extraordinary about Evans is that he gave up his star to keep the writer. Nobody does that.
Great story.
Let me hear, Julia. The film was perceived to be a financial failure, but it actually made very good money.
I think they were calling it Evans Gate for a while.
But actually, it was successful.
Yes, but financially, apparently, it was successful. But by that time, the Hollywood story was that it was a big flop, and they liked that story because they didn't like Altman, and they didn't like the whole, so it's apparently the picture was a financial success, but the people at Paramount didn't want anybody to know that.
There's one more there, and then we have to close.
When you first made the movie, did you make it more for children or more for adults, or just a movie for both? Was it intended for kids, or?
I didn't make it for anybody but E.C. Segar. Segar was the creator of the Thimble Theater and Popeye character in the newspapers, in the comic strips, and sometime at some point they started publishing collections of the old Popeyes by Segar, and I recognized when I picked them up and read them what a genius he was. And I had loved Popeye as a kid. I had drawn Popeye drawings as a kid, but I had no idea of the true genius of Segar and his work until I read this collection. And I wanted to do this film as a tribute to him. And I thought we had failed. But then I got a telephone call after the screenings of when the film began to screen. And a woman got on the phone and she said she was E.C. Segar's daughter. And she said that many people had said they wanted to honor her father, and they didn't. And she thought this movie did, and she wanted to thank me. And we both burst into tears. And it was wonderful. Segar was a great man, and it's interesting. When I began reading the 36, 37, 38 Popeyes, in collections, my first reaction says, "Oh my God, it's Samuel Beckett! It's Waiting for Godot," because it was a vaudeville show, just as Godot was a vaudeville show, and just as Beckett picked his rhythms and style out of vaudeville, this is what Segar was doing, and there was a real affinity for them, and I tried to bring all of that out in the script I wrote, and possibly I did, but I didn't see it up there.
How important was Segar for your own work? How important was Segar for your own work?
What about Segar?
How important was his work for your own work?
How important was Segar for my own work? Well, my own work was pretty established and pretty. I mean, I always loved Popeye as a kid, but I never thought of it as an influence. But when I made the connection, which was in my head only, between Segar's writing on Popeye and Samuel Beckett, I thought, how the hell do I steal this and make it part of my own? How do I do things that seem so simple, so straightforward, but have a resonance that you can't quite figure out quite how it happened. How do I do that? How do I get it for myself? And my career, or part of my career, took a turn in that direction, trying to figure out how I get to say in a much more simple, with less dialogue form, very complicated ideas that seemed totally simple. So it was all of this was an education for me, and I'm still learning about it.
And I think we have to finish because we have another show. But Jules, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you.